I think we need to have a serious, hard, full discussion about lewdness in our games. And to keep it very much a stack, I know immediately people, when they hear these sort of conversations and people that obviously, talk about this a lot, they'll go as far as to say that this don't matter, they need to keep it toned down, and all that sort of stuff too. And many people will, obviously debate on that and all that sort of jazz when it comes down to it too. But I do feel like we need to talk about a new sort of mentality that has entered the space that I don't like at all, and that is not very genuine of these different IPs that keep going in these sort of routes of these, way of where they're going to try to take these games in the future or these anime or whatever. And essentially, it is the fact that you have these very well known sort of lewd kind of games only for them to basically just evaporate the lewdness from them, and then they try to focus on the cool factor of these games. That is dumb. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I don't know who needs to tell you this. I don't know who needs to really, go out their way to bring this up. But that mentality is extremely dumb. It's happening to Senran Kagura, and it's a very good sign that this could very much happen to the next DOA game when it comes out to DOA 7. And I'm not effing with this. I'm not effing with this at all. In fact, DOA 6 was a testing ground, a proving ground even, to kind of showcase that, yeah, the developers of that game was not focusing hard in on the lewd side of things. They'll still say that, oh no, DOA 6 was sexy, but let's be honest, it was nowhere near as good as DOA 4 was, let alone even 5 when it comes down to it. They will try to put in these quote-unquote sexy outfits because, they still want to try to keep the status quo somewhat there, but ultimately it's really not. It's safe sexy. It's not nearly as good as it could be. Like, the outfits are very obvious, they're very bland, and they're not necessarily that great. And anytime people want to talk about toning it down and all that sort of stuff, and or saying that it can be there, but they never really give an opinion about that sort of thing either. Like, a lot of FGC people do not give an opinion about what DOA has when it comes down to their outfit selections and which ones slap for you, right? No one really yaps about that, and they're very much faster to just, flip through these characters really quickly and then just, pick their character and not necessarily worry too much about the outfits and costumes and stuff like that either, right? Which I find hilarious because it's very much this is like, the FGC is a weird place when it comes down to it, because when it comes down to these games for their survival, they can't survive on their own. If it's just FGC people just buying, all these new fighting games, they can't really let it survive on its own. The reason why they need new people is so they can get funding for the next new fighting game to come out, which I find incredibly funny and incredibly ironic. The very same people that you probably don't like, probably don't want to see in your community, it's the same people that's also like helping you keep it alive, helping you fund these ideas and let it thrive, which is, very ironic and very hilarious when it comes down to it. Like, let's just be absolutely real, and plenty of people have already stated this before, what makes a game isn't necessarily the detailed mechanics, the detailed visuals that you see in the game, and all that sort of stuff. Those are bonuses to a lot of people. The average person wants to see cool shit. The average person wants to see what the game is actually like about on the surface level. Whether it is fun looking gameplay, whether it is the cool looking characters, or the hot cool looking characters, or the hot characters without the coolness. And at the very same time, they want to also know if there is a story, is the story good? And all that sort of stuff too. So ultimately, that's what people are looking for. There's like 3 factors. There will always be these 3 factors to make a game, appealing to certain people, or just people in general. The story, the gameplay, and the visuals. If you ain't getting good on either of those things, you're very much going to have a game that no one is really going to sit there and want to play. So it's up to the developer's job to basically make these games as beautiful and as cool and as well designed and fun as they possibly can make it to be. The problem is, a lot of time they try to go about these methods in these very weird ways. And especially when it comes down to cases of games that are obviously well known to be this lewd ass game, they end up trying to tone that down and try to make the game cool. But ultimately, that's not how that works. Lewdness does not equal coolness. It just isn't a thing that happens. It doesn't even work in the opposite direction of that either. Like, you can't sit here and make something like Siren Kagura be cool, because that's not what it was about. You know what it is about in the human, regular, average person's consciousness? It is quite literally about hot women beating ass, yes, but hot women being in lewd situations while somehow being ninjas and beating ass. That's literally what Siren Kagura is. And the fact that Marvelous wants to focus that to be a cool sort of perspective, to be more cool than it is on that sexualized fan service and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't make sense. It never made sense to even think about it in that sort of situation. The average person, when they see a Siren Kagura character, they're thinking, alright, how many different ways can we get this character butt booty naked? That's essentially what it is. Versus, oh yeah, I can't wait to see this character and this character fight and throw hands. Like, no one's thinking that. Not a single person is thinking that, unless it's like the very small minority of people that's thinking that. Same thing with DOA. It is about entertainment. It's about having a fun time with the game. People will oftentimes say there should be a balance between the lewdness and the, the gameplay side of the game itself and the fighting game and whatever. But ultimately, that shouldn't even be part of the conversation. It never was back then. It was just, the game existing the way it is, and it was doing its job the way it should be, right? There was never a question about balancing anything, because DOA just knew how to do it itself without even worrying about balance in any shape and form. Like, if you ask the average person what is DOA to them, it is that lewd fighting game with the hot women and, the guys in some of that small section of guys that just beat ass. That's literally what the average person's mind is. So why would you change that and try to make it a cool factor sort of game instead of just what it is? Like DOA Extreme, while it is in Japan and obviously is the only place that you can really play it, guess what? They're the people that's basically funding DOA high key. Like, they're the only branch of DOA that still like funnel in money in some shape and form, because people still remember that side of DOA. People still want that side of DOA to exist in all formats. And the fact that you try to get rid of it in the actual main format of what DOA existed as doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And it's just baffling how these type of decisions are getting made. Instead of trying to get rid of that factor, instead of trying to, get rid of it entirely, why don't you look at games in the area of what you're making? Why not look at other games that have similar things to it and then try to see what we can pull from that and how we can go about it to make the next game really good and even better? Like, we can sit here and talk about the downfall of DOA 6 and why it sucks ass and why people, didn't like it, even on the lewd side, because let's be real, yes, there was a lot of problems gameplay wise with the sidestep bullshit, the meter mechanic. There is other things like the microtransactions that really dig people in the ass a lot of ways. There was also the fact that, the game itself, personally for me, doesn't really look that much better than DOA 5 personally. So there is that. And ultimately, there's just a lot of other factors that we can very much logically look into that really did cause the problems. But on an average person's side, do they give a shit about if the game has rollback netcode like that? Like, yes, people do care about it more now than ever before, but like, did people care about that type of shit back then? Not really. Not the average person. Not the average person. The hardcore people, absolutely. The average person, not really. I'll keep it a stat. Not really much so, right? I only started really knowing what rollback netcode and stuff like that was until the 2020s. So that's just how it was for me. And ultimately, when you really look at what people, again, really want is cool effects, good looking characters, and essentially a fun game to play and a story to maybe get their teeth sunk into. That's what people look for. And if you think for 5 seconds that, sexiness can't work with DOA, it has to be cool, we must balance that, we must tone it down, or all that sort of stuff, Look at the games around what DOA has right now. Look at the games that has done those very same things with the lewd factor in there, and look how successful they are. Stellar Blade is a massive success. They're getting a sequel, and they absolutely know what the hell they're doing, and they know how to cook. Brown does too, a niche game, but they still have the sexiness in there, and they realize if we remove such content, it kills what the game is, as we have seen earlier this year, and ultimately they reversed that decision, which still, thankfully, they had learned about that. And the game is still just as lewd as it was before. The same thing with, like, Nikkei. Big booty women shooting people with guns. Like, that's all Nikkei really is. Like, sure, you don't need to... there's obviously a story that's there, but you don't really need to worry about the story when you see crazy shit of just caked up women shooting people and all that sort of jazz, right? Azure Lane, same thing with Azure Lane. Recently they dropped a whole character teaser or whatever about a certain character jumping off a damn helicopter. Her boobs are going everywhere and it's crazy, but that's what people are going to yap about. People are going to yap about that, so they're like, oh, so that's what Azure Lane is. That might be people's first introduction to Azure Lane. You want to know, again, what my introduction to Genshin was? Fat ass Sheiks of Amber. Amber's fat ass Sheiks in the first state of play they showed up in, and I never went back again to question anything. I've been an avid person playing Genshin for the last 6 years, and it's been an amazing time, and I will continue to keep playing that shit because it's just that damn good. In the loot department, not so much, but when it comes down to the actual game itself, it is really still good, but they don't also shy away from that sort of feature when they get the chance to do so, right? Zenless, oh boy, that game is literally littered with hot ass women across the board. They know exactly what type of audience, the people playing that game is. They understand it. They know. They don't matter what type of character it is. Lolly, average build, tall lady, don't necessarily matter. They know exactly how to cook. Even on the guy's side, they know how to cook with that if you're down for that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, those games make a shit ton of money. They make so much money. And it's not because they tone anything down, it's because they live all that stuff up. They go beyond the expectations, and it's the reason why so many people continue to keep playing these damn games. Especially when it comes down to, any of the gacha games that's involved in stuff like that too. So ultimately, it's like, if those games are being successful, and they are living it up with what they are, encouraging and putting out there, and they're focusing on both coolness, but also realize they have that sex appeal to their characters as well, and so they focus on that too, basically making a good combination between gameplay, designs, and effectively their story. Why can't DOA do the same damn thing? Why can't Senran Kagura do the same damn thing when it comes down to it? No one would say no to an average Senran Kagura game where you have clothes getting ripped off, and the story is there, and maybe even a little bit of a change into the gameplay itself of what an average Senran Kagura game is. No one would complain about that sort of stuff. Same way with DOA. If you literally put in like a bikini mode or whatever, or you put in some type of not strip club, but like stripper poker sort of gameplay mechanic in there, or mini game or whatever, if that's what you chose to do, along with the main side of the game, and the main side of the game is also focused on those sort of things, no one would really complain that much, or at least you would still get money, maybe even more money than you probably could in a corporate esports sort of setting, right? Like, you just want the global esports recognition BS that kind of goes with that sort of stuff with other fighting games, but do you really need to have that? Do you really need to absolutely have that, right? SNK understands the excitement to a point, right? Where they're not going to sit there and just, censor the shit out of female characters if that's what they want to represent them as. They understood the excitement very damn well. Hell, Street Fighter 6, even though people will, get on Street Fighter's cases a lot of the time, even they understood the excitement to a degree of how to keep the characters hot, and while still, maintaining what Street Fighter is. They know what to do. People, a lot of time, know what to do with these sort of games, and it's just baffling how many times you will see these sort of games get hoed, these sort of games not to be, given the absolute grace that they should have, solely because, man, that one female character, too damn hot. Take her away. No way she should be in this game.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Because if that sort of mentality is just how things are now. There's no way someone like Jury in Street Fighter 6 would ever exist, right? From if Street Fighter 4 was a thing right now, and if it was like the new game right now with this sort of mentality, people would dog walk Jury 5 times over. You better be lucky she's a staple, otherwise we would have had, plenty of complaints, way more than she probably already has. And then at the same time, again, I can only deduce this being a part of the West Coast mentality. What that is, I'm not really sure to ultimately define, but if we know how California is, California has a lot of everything over there. They know how to make things work. They're also the people that is responsible for like a lot of entertainment that comes out of like mainstream media and things like that, where your journalists basically live for the most damn part, and all that sort of stuff too. They're also the reason why lots of other things kind of get passed down through the states and really across the world, because that's probably what people see first. Like, events are never held in like the eastern territories outside like a New York or a Texas, and barely it feels like they want to even do that. You never see a big major event in like a Tennessee or like in the southern states, or like wherever on the east side that isn't like, the big known states that's like way up there. And that's that West Coast mentality. You just get West Coast mentality a lot of the time. It's the reason why a lot of things, when it come down to just the average American lifestyle's kind of jacked up. We ain't gonna get into that, but it's just really in a messed up position. Because if we had a lot of this stuff, hell, if a lot of the studios from the West was in the East traditionally, we probably would never had that. We probably would never had that issue and a problem with, showcasing fine ass women, or letting guys act like guy characters and be men and all that sort of stuff too. We wouldn't have this sort of problem if, the West Coast was had a better handle on those sort of old men, at least not even the old mentalities, just those, thoughts and reasonings and logics and just stuff like that in general, right? It's why so many people hate California. Because they keep ruining every damn thing. Because they're the people that has the most sensitive people on the planet, and ultimately for a lot of different cases. Not everyone over there is like that. Definitely not everyone that's over there like that. But that's a lot of the issue too. It's the mentality over there, and that mentality unfortunately speaks for everybody within the gaming industry and the anime industry, within the, just the entertainment industry as a whole, when no, bitch, it really doesn't. One state should not speak for everybody, because that's not how that effing works. Honestly, at times it feels like we're competing against, we have like the main presidency in DC, and then we have another presidency in California or something like that. That's what it genuinely feels like. And again, the reason why we keep getting games getting hoed in a lot of different ways, and anime keep getting a lot of the wrong type of representation it's been getting, is again because of that West Coast mentality. It's because they don't let that shit breathe like they used to, right? Like, nowhere else is this a problem but over there on the west side. It just is what it is. And we could very much have like, all these sort of talks about it, and maybe how the West Coast really has, divulged into this clusterfuck of a state that basically keeps ruining everything like it ain't nothing. But I'm not going to get into that to the highest extent. I think I'm just going to say this and then leave it off with this as well, right? Because ultimately, again, lewdness does not equal coolness when it comes down to it. And ultimately, if DOA 7 comes through, and you want to know how we can kind of tell what the actual direction of DOA 7 is going to be, whether they show it at Summer Game Fest or EVO or whatever, like, the way we could tell DOA is back or not is the first trailer, or at least the trailers of how they're going to showcase the female characters. Because if the character designs are covered up, if the designs are not necessarily full out displayed, right? If there's not even a slight focus on even a little bit of sex appeal on the characters, I'm gonna be honest, DOA 7 is already just dead. It will be dead, because they don't want to display that sort of thing, and it will be dead. And then at that point, I'll be dead ass when I say this. I would rather you put DOA as a IP in this very same grave as Izagaki, because he's the only person that was able to, make DOA for what it is. He's literally the person that made the damn game. So honestly, I would rather you just let it rest with Itagaki and then never touch the IP again. Because Heike, if that's what DOA 7 ends up turning into, basically this battle between, trying to make all the loot features and all the loot stuff cool, and try to hoe on the lootiness side of things and not give it what DOA is actually is known for, then I don't want to see another DOA game. I don't want to see another one. I already don't like how they're doing DOA 6 and how they're supposed to be coming out very soon with the last round edition. I already don't like the mentality of how they're going about it, and there's other games how they kind of censor that too. I'm not looking forward to what DOA 7 could have unless I'm proven otherwise wrong and they actually do go into those territories and not necessarily hold their audience in those sort of ways. But as it is right now, that's the giant fear. That's the big ass fear when it comes down to it. Because again, if you take that away, the average person is not going to care. They're not going to fund another game when it comes down to it, right? They're not going to want to fund another DOA game. The same way I wouldn't want a Soul Calibur game to come back in any shape and form, with like the lack of what Soul Calibur has, right? Soul Calibur is less loot, but they still have loot factors into it too. And while it's not necessarily like hard focus on it, I just wouldn't want Soul Calibur to come back if it's not truly Soul Calibur. The same way I wouldn't want DOA to come back if DOA is not truly what DOA is. I wouldn't want Tekken to even be a Tekken 9. I wouldn't want a Tekken 9 to really exist without Tekken being what Tekken actually is. And hell, even Tekken feels like it's been toned down over the years with its crazy ass storytelling and stuff like that too, to a degree. So that's even lacking in that sort of direction for that game. But yeah, that's pretty much, I guess, everything I wanted to say for this one. Mainly to hammer down the whole, idea that these devs will go out their way to try to make loot ideas and loot games to be like, cool, when that's not what it is. Again, look around you in the space that you have. Look around the space of these sort of games that do go in on those factors, and look how much money they make. Not because, you're trying to sex up the game and that's the main part. No, it's basically you going into it wanting to make an actually good game, and at the very same time, you don't necessarily disregard what the game is. You don't disregard the fighting element to it. You don't disregard the loot element to it. You don't disregard all the factors that make, DOA what it was over the years. But yeah, that's basically everything I really want to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow my socials, and if you like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And until next time, sign off. Have a step.